Hello, and welcome to episode 36 of the Movie Bros podcast. We are your hosts, Duncan and Hayden. I'm Duncan, he's Hayden.
Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody.
If you are, a return viewer, welcome back. If you're new and you stumbled upon this, well, don't stumble away. This is two brothers, as the title obviously suggests, that watch movies, as the title suggests, and then we discuss and ramble and banter about said movie. These come out pretty much every week on Sundays. And then we occasionally will have special episodes, quote unquote, special features, as you might call them, that might have to do with the holiday that month, or if we go see a movie in person, we might reference that here in a little bit. And these totally range from all kinds of genres and all kinds of time constraints. So if you're looking for a podcast that's anywhere from like 35, 40 minutes over up to like an hour and a half, you're in the right place. If you want something shorter, and you still enjoy the sounds of our soothing voices, you can check out Dunk's Movie Corner Pod. That's like a 10 to 15 minute little ramble, solo with myself. But otherwise, this is an actual conversation discussion, and we'll kind of pick apart a movie.
I was going to say, I don't have a podcast to listen to, although I have been thinking about maybe doing a short rundown of horror movie stuff, since I know that's something I enjoy a great deal
do it,
more
dude.
than my brother.
Do it.
I've been stuck trying to find an alliterative device using for the name. It's my only source of creativity for names, and that's what's been holding me back. So, if anything, we can talk about it more later.
Okay, all right.
I'd also like to point out, you welcome back to our viewers, and we definitely don't have a visual podcast.
Not yet. It has something that I've in the back of my mind I have been thinking about, but maybe
really?
they just Well, again, that's becoming more and more of a thing. Like, there's several podcasts now that are much more visual, and I'm sure we can make this interesting. Who knows?
We could both get webcams and can watch our faces behind our mics if you wanted, I guess.
No,
if you are interested in this, leave us a comment.
And who knows? Maybe we'll potentially get funding for an entire studio renovation. You never know.
I'm definitely not just in my bedroom in my one-bedroom apartment. We all have studios. We all have production design teams behind them. All these things.
Either way, like I said, we talk about anything from horror to thriller to action to comedy to romance to drama to historical epic to sci-fi to fantasy. And speaking of fantasy, this week we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Before we get into an actual discussion, we usually start with a quick little film fact, rapid fire by Hayden.
That's right, and here's our fast film facts for Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This was released in 2023. I don't know if this is our most recent movie we've ever reviewed. I think last week with Oppenheimer was also pretty up there, but this is fairly close for us. Usually, this is directed and written by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldenstein. Music here is by Lorne Balfe, a favorite of my own personally. Cinematography here is by someone I've never heard of named Barry Peterson. Who knows? Stars here are Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez. Who knows? The French name here, which I've been putting off trying to memorize. Regé Jean Page, Justice Smith, Sophia Lillis, Daisy Head, Chloe Coleman, and featuring Hugh Grant. And I guess the trivia I would have for this is that the director and writer, John Francis Daley, is equally or perhaps more well known as a comedic character actor. He appeared in the show Freaks and Geeks for its entire runtime in the 90s, was on Bones for a good 10 years, and shows up in bit roles all over the place as kind of like the dork or the nerd or the geek kind of guy. And no offense to him, it makes 100% sense that he would direct a movie about Dungeons and Dragons. Like, when I pictured what's the guy who directs the D&D movie look like? Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's all I have for facts. Duncan, where do we want to start on discussion?
I think for was it last week that we did? Yeah, Oppenheimer last week. We started with the ratings, so maybe we should end with the ratings this week. Keep our
Okay.
many viewers on their toes. I would start with saying that this movie is basically almost right at 2 hours, and I think that's pretty spot on for like how long it should be. You could probably have wrapped this up in like 90 to 100 minutes, but 2 hours is fine.
It is fine. I mean, yes, we are burying the lead ratings wise. As much as I do enjoy this movie a ton, because I have seen it, 3 or 4 times now, and it's only been out 2 years, I do enjoy it a lot. I come away feeling wanting for more story, I think. Um, or perhaps dissatisfied with parts of the plot. So if they want to throw an extra half an hour in to give us some more character development, I wouldn't hate it.
See, at that point, I was like, especially with the kind of movie it is, because I feel like, okay, I understand putting in an extra half an hour in like Oppenheimer to get more character development. But with something that's as light as this, I feel like that's the kind of thing that you would put on in part two. Like Honor or Dungeons and Dragons, uh, you know, whatever the next title is.
Sure, and
'Cause
there is constantly like online petitions to make
oh
another
yeah,
one. Is
I
you know,
was curious because I googled after I watched it. I was like, oh, like are they in the works or not? Not
so
currently.
despite pretty much everyone who's ever seen this really enjoying it and having a great time and wanting more of it, when they were releasing this to theaters, they didn't promote it almost at all, and so it didn't make any money. And so, from a studio executive standpoint, if they're looking at that, this isn't a viable option for like more of them. It doesn't meet the monetary quota, I guess.
Which is unfortunate because again, we're trying to bury the lead a little bit, but like like you, I
It's
generally
good.
it's good. Although, uh, I think this is my third watch because
It
first
does
time I
have
was
an
like, oh,
unfortunate amount of Justice Smith.
that is something that I will discuss later. But so the way I see it is like, oh, if you've never seen this the first time is more of like it's surprisingly good and fun. Second one, you're like, oh, it's still like it holds up. Like okay, because it feels very like it's basically fantasy version of Guardians of the Galaxy, more or
That
less.
is what. Yes,
Which I feel like
I
everyone who has
kept
seen
coming
it
back
has
to
said
that.
that.
I
Um,
kept coming back to that the entire time. Yes.
yeah, but when you put that aside, by the time I got to the third rewatch now, in however many years it's been out, but I don't know if like it's fun, but if you look at the actual story, there's not.
That's what I'm saying.
But again, but if that's on a third rewatch, like that's like actually really objectively looking at it. Like if you're going there for an enjoyable time, yeah, they should make another one, and that's where they put more story.
Well, I mean, okay, so let's continue going with some things that we liked. Um, I love all of the color in this, and I think that fantasy movies in general should be colorful. I don't understand the
Okay,
need to sepia wash everything and try and suck the visual magic eh, out of
I
a
understand.
magic filled world. Like, I just
I
this was so and this was so fun to look at, just all
well,
over the place.
it depends on the tone though, because like Lord of the Rings is technically fantasy, and that is not a brightly colored movie. Like this movie is clearly lighthearted and a comedy.
Right.
It
So
works.
I would amend that to say that if you were making a fantasy adventure, then yes.
Sure.
If you're
Yes.
making a fantasy, like, because I mean, large portions of Lord of the Rings is fantasy drama.
Sure.
So sure, that makes more sense. But I don't know. I love seeing all of the golden castles and the deep green and glowing bits of the forest, and you get to see Justice Smith do his Justice Smith thing when he's got the magic helmet on, and I don't know. I love that there is a lot of vibrancy in the world building here.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, for the world that it's built, the story and everything, like, it all works together, sure. Like, I can just if you I think, color like, the color palette and color grading is obviously very important for every movie, and that has to work together with the sort like, all the parts have to fit. Because if can you imagine, like, the washed out dark gloominess of, Lord of the Rings on this, and then the colorfulness, like, if you switch the palettes and like, it would look terrible. Uh
I mean, it would make it would dramatically take away from like the hard hitting nature of some of Return of the King if it wasn't just grayscale and some green.
mhm. Uh, but on the flip side of that, I feel like the cinematography wasn't
It's adequate,
that's it, it's perfectly adequate. It is not at all interesting, really, at all. Like,
but
it
I
tells
mean,
this it's tell well, you referenced this last week, uh, like, uh, like, cinematography versus, like, blocking, like,
yes.
oh, this feels much more on one side than the other.
Well, I think the reason why this one feels like that is that so much of this is just action set pieces. There's not a whole lot of scenes where the characters are not running around and doing things. I think so. There's a lot less opportunity for cinematographers who aren't Bill Pope to find artistic ways to do that. Did all the Raimi Spider-Man stuff. Worked a ton with Edgar Wright. Did a lot of Baby Driver.
Okay.
I think he's very good at shooting artistic action stuff.
Yeah, I could well, there's I feel like if you're gonna do action, there's 2 ways to do it. There's artistically, which, yeah, all those things you mentioned, those movies, yes, that is artistic action. And then I feel like the other side is, like, interesting, like, grounded action. Like, if you think of, like, most of the Mission Impossible stuff
Sure.
is that kind of action, which
Yeah.
it leans a lot more on the choreography of it, which this movie does
hmm
not have a ton of that either, because a lot of
I
them
mean, there's
are not
some
choreographed.
swordplay.
Oh, no, I mean, like, all the characters are not, quote, unquote, like, very professional. Like, they're not
No,
it's not, they're not
it's
in, like,
not
a
John
flow
Wick.
state together. Yeah, exactly. When I was thinking about this and thinking about how yes, everyone references as fantasy Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm like, "Okay, this is Chris Pine, then there's Chris Pratt," and I was thinking about it, I was like, "I don't know if I could see Chris Pine being Star-Lord, but I also don't know if I'd really could see Chris Pratt being the Bard." But
I
then I was
could
also
see
thinking,
Chris Pratt doing the Bard. I could not see Pine being Star Lord.
well, Star-Lord, I mean, Chris Pine is, again, I think he's too good looking, like, facially. Chris
Yeah,
Pratt's
I mean,
kind of pugly
he's
face.
a little bit. I think Pine would be too good looking, and he's a little too old.
Now, yeah, sure. I mean, remember, Guardians of the Galaxy at this point is probably a decade ago,
I know. Don't make
which
me
is
feel
wild.
more old.
But I was also thinking, okay, that's 2 Chris's, but then there's also Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth. I'm like, okay, could I don't think those are I think both of
Chris
them are
Evans, as much as I love him, could not do either one of these roles.
nah.
And Chris Hemsworth, he's too much of a big beefy dude to play a bard.
Yeah. Yeah, even if, like, maybe he could get the personality for it, just physically, he's too big. That's why, again, there's, like, the 4 Chris's, but they all kinda have their very specific lanes that they fit in. That's all I was thinking of. Um, Chancellor okay, Jarnathan, that whole bit at the very beginning and the end.
That's so good, though.
Well, again, I distinctly remember the first time watching this, like, because again, that's basically the first scene. I was like, "What the fuck am I what is this? Is this" it almost like
I
watching
really
that
feel
first
like our
little
story would be affecting for Jarnathan.
well, it almost felt like I was watching, like, a College Humor, like, video or some shit. It felt I don't know. Um, speaking of, sure, I don't like Justice Smith, but I also I feel like I've seen her in something else, and I didn't like her in it either. But the daughter, Kira or whatever, I don't like the actress, and I don't like I don't I think she's a boring fucking character, dude.
I think she is probably the most underdeveloped character on the screen,
Well, granted,
and
the story's not about
she doesn't
her,
have a whole lot to
but
do. And I don't like her actress either. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything where she's likable.
mhm.
Um,
I don't know. Again,
and
I
I would
can't
actually say
place where I've
Justice
seen her,
Smith
but
is probably at his most tolerable in this because there are
yes,
other
I guess
characters
so.
to distract from his Justice Smithness.
Did you ever see Detective Pikachu?
No, but it looked, decently fun. I've never been into Pokemon, so it didn't. I don't know. Didn't feel like it was for me. So,
Well, like the again, I don't really have a ton. I don't even remember why. Maybe I watched it on a plane or something, but the world building that they made with the Pokemon was actually really interesting. As someone who knows almost nothing about them, but he's the main character, and it was just absolutely fucking
oh
ass.
no,
Oh God.
oh no,
Just and him in one of the newer Jurassic World, whatever the fuck it is.
the second one,
Yeah, just every time
Fallen
that I see
Kingdom.
him, I'm always like, oh, he is just not.
He
Who
just
keeps giving him jobs?
well, it's not even that. It's just he plays. It's not even typecasting. It's that I refuse to believe he isn't offered other kinds of roles. I feel like this is the only kind of character he wants to play, and I don't understand why he thinks it's a likable character.
The like awkward.
Awkward. He has no confidence. He's whiny.
Yes.
He's perpetually trying to get the girl. I don't.
Hmm.
Man, you were a grown ass adult. Why are you playing this character and everything? It's weird.
I did. I don't know if you referenced when they were. I think this was towards the beginning after they broke out of the prison. Spoiler alert again. Technically, this
Hmm.
only came out like a couple years ago, folks, but it's been out for a while. So if we're talking about shit, deal with it. Um,
It's been out
they're
for 2 years.
yeah, they reference Baldur's Gate, which is now like a very well known game. Which I was like, oh,
Yep.
um,
So I have several coworkers who actually play D&D themselves, and I was because I knew we were going to be talking about this evening. I'm like, oh, I should ask them what their opinions are, since if there's anyone who's going to like D&D and like a D&D movie, it's going to be these guys. And they said that they really liked how this movie is written from the perspective of they want it to be accessible to people who don't know what D&D is. Like there's a ton of like lore stuff sprinkled in everywhere that makes sense for people who play the game and will recognize things, and but you don't have to know any of it to have a good time.
yeah, I think I can understand that because as I think I can speak for both of us because neither of us have done it much. It's pretty enjoyable, and I mean, I don't have any real experience. I've done it once, and I barely scratched the
Really?
surface. Hmm.
I never knew you played D&D. What was it like?
I took my character's motivations perhaps too seriously.
Okay,
I was
well, fill
supposed
me in. What
well,
was
just
your character?
I was supposed to be like this like cunning, like lone wolf backstabbing kind of vibe. I did not pick the character. The dungeon master picked the character for me. I'm like, all right, cool. And everyone was at like a tavern, like getting ready to leave together as a party. And I was like, fuck it,
Right.
I'm going on my own. So of
I
course
feel
I
like
just
that's not what you do.
yeah. And he even advised me. He's like, oh, you may not hint want to do that. I'm like, I'm doubling down, dude. This is my character. This is like what he would do. And then I discovered this big monster thing that before we were supposed to really discover it. And then I immediately died, and because I discovered it, then everyone else also had to face him, and everyone else died, and
That is
that was it.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
I bet you were a real favorite of that.
Uh huh.
Mhm.
Either way,
No, that's cool.
I
I never knew you had played before.
Oh yeah, and like I would definitely, I would give it a go again, probably with different outcomes and different. Bradley Cooper, why? I mean, again, no complaints, but it just seemed like such an odd choice.
I I forget he's in this every time, and then he shows up, and he's a little guy.
Yeah, it just seems it's just so odd. Like
It is
why him?
weird.
It,
Like of
that's why I was like,
like,
okay, is
did
he
he
good
just
friends with
want to be
anyone?
in
Or
this, or I mean, granted, I don't know the man obviously, but Bradley Cooper
see,
just seems like a nice dude.
I could
Maybe
see him
he's
as the
just friends with
bard.
everyone. I could see him being the bard. Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if he auditioned for the bard, and they're like, well, we're gonna give it to Chris Pine, but there's
Okay,
this other
let's
role.
let's let's say we're in the universe that they gave it to Bradley Cooper. Could you see Chris Pine as Holga's ex-husband?
No,
Really? Because I don't know. I think if he
nah.
was only on screen for the short amount of time that Bradley Cooper's character was, I think it'd be okay.
Granted, I already think that the whole Bradley Cooper as her husband is also weird, but
I mean, it is definitely just thrown in there to be strange. Yes.
yeah, I feel like some of the humor worked, and some of the stuff with Hugh Grant worked, and some of it did not for me.
I think most of it's pretty good.
The helmet bit where they have to go to the grave to ask the dudes where the hell, and they basically are just going from grave to grave to
That's
grave to grave.
funny.
That's funny. That's good. The questions are fun. Um,
I the
I think
the
we're
Helm of Disjunction storyline frustrates
eh,
me.
yeah. Well, granted, I think that's a combination of the story itself, but also Justice Smith and his
See,
like impotent bit.
it's not even a Justice Smith issue, or at least not in my opinion. I think it's the issue that once they do have this helmet and they finally use it and it's worthless, and then they just toss it to the side and they never mention it again, even though we spent a whole bunch of series of events looking for this thing. I just why structure the story that way? Why not at least have the helmet have a little bit of payoff? Because then it feels like those things we saw the characters do for the last 40-ish minutes or so were worthless. So,
Yeah, I mean that
I
a
think,
good portion of the story was that helmet.
and don't get me wrong, them going to, the Underdark and fighting the big fat dragon, that's great. That's super fun. I like them talking to the graves and like that's cool too. I don't even mind the Justice Smith putting on the helmet and having arguments with himself, because you get to see someone at least slap him a few times. Um, but I just, we spend all that time. Why not at least write it so that there is at least something in that room when they get there, so it doesn't feel like we wasted all that time? Or at the very least, keep the helmet.
Yes, or at the very end when they're fighting the bad chick, like him, you know,
Yeah,
like
have him
freeze her or do something with it. Yes, I agree.
like, because sure, okay, if they're captured and they're thrown into the ring to fight and they're not allowed to use magical abilities, it makes sense that they would take the helm, right? But afterwards, they have that, big boat full of treasure, and they come back to save the day, whatever. Take the helmet out of the bin. You could just it's as easy as a single shot. You show it from up over Justice Smith's shoulder. You show him turning around. He sees the helmet in the sunlight glinting, and he reaches down, grabs it.
Hmm.
Cutscene. You move back towards them in the courtyard, and he's wearing it. So it makes more sense when he pulls that big fist of
Yes, which
like
that was cool. The big hand
again,
fight. Yeah, very cool.
it's a cool fight. I mean, pretty
I
much
don't
all the action sequences in this it nails. I just wish that the helm wasn't such an obvious MacGuffin that didn't do anything.
I will say though, I was never a big fan. Like the villain kind of felt
She doesn't
lame
have as much
for
gravitas
me.
as you think she's supposed to.
Yeah, she felt kind of lame.
Like, for her plotline of ushering in a swarm of gas that kills everyone and makes them undead zombies, like, okay, that's kind of cool. But she's just sort of a rude, bald goth. and she never
Pretty much, and,
becomes
like,
more evil than that.
they kinda reference, like, her like, talking to her boss, basically, at some
They do
point,
once, yes.
and then just never talks about it again. I'm like, "Alright, cool. Cool, cool, cool."
Like, as she uses the horn more, and you
Mhm.
can start to see her face kinda, like, deteriorate, like,
Yes. Yeah.
that's almost getting there, but it should make her look more evil. It should be giving her, like, horned brows or something, like, I don't know.
Something. Yes. No, I agree. I
She
definitely
never came
agree.
across as, like, scary mistress of the undead as, like, the story definitely wants us to think of her as.
I do feel like they as much as he was in it, I feel like they underused the Bridgerton guy.
I think I don't agree. I think that he's in it enough to where he doesn't become
Part of the
more
crew?
cares. Yeah, because
Yeah, he should be part of the crew. They need a sword dude.
right, but the whole thing is that, oh, it's a group of thieves, it's a group of outlaws. He's too nice. I feel like to really be a part of that crew, I
I
would,
suppose.
you know, if both of our prayers are answered and they make a second one,
Sure.
they
Yeah,
should
they
have a
could.
sword guy, but I
Mhm.
don't think it should be him. It should be someone who's equally morally ambiguous so it doesn't stick out.
Yeah, that's fair, and also I think of, like, especially if this is based off D&D, not every character is gonna be in the quote unquote story or campaign the entire time. Like, you're gonna meet people and they're gonna disappear.
No, I mean, if
So
anything, in the second
that's
one,
fair.
don't keep any of the remaining cast. Just keep the same, like just keep the same setting and make it different characters. Doesn't have to be honor among thieves too.
No, 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 no. I wouldn't say Honor Among Thieves too. I would literally just say so the first one is Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. The second one is Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, totally something else. If that's the same character, it's great. But yeah, because it's such a big world, you could literally have an entirely new
Or
cast.
what you could do is you could have an entirely new cast, but you have Chris Pine being like the narrator as he's telling you a tale because he's a bard.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's lots of options on
There are
things he could do with this.
Hollywood. There's a way to do this. Call us up.
But I will also say the whole I I understand some character development for him with his wife and who his family is and all that shit, sure, but the especially when the whole butterfly, let it go away
That
it was way
scene
too so heavy-handed, dude. Like, we
that's
got
another
it,
one
dude.
of
We
my
got it.
that's another one of my criticisms here is like while no one is looking for like subtle storytelling out of an action fantasy, I don't need you to hit me in the face like with a brick and say it's your narrative.
Mhm.
Yeah, we get it. He's holding on to the past. There
Yeah, no
are
shit.
more easier ways to do this than just literally light that up in the sky in giant neon letters. Sophia Lillis, the redhead, is someone. I mean, I think she's a good actress, and
Mhm.
she is.
Okay.
And she's also very young. She's, I
What else has
think,
she done, Hayden?
she was in both the It movies, which I thought she was good in. I don't know.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, I would like to see her in more stuff. I think she, every couple of years they put out a list of, oh, here's all the young talents to look for. I'm like, I don't know. I would like to see her in more things. I think she's a good actress.
I'm glad that, well, I don't even know if it's any different, but, like, the chick who's just basically known for, Fast and the Furious, Michelle,
Michelle
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez. Yeah.
A, I'm glad she's doing other things because it's
Hmm.
either Fast and Furious or she's just the fighter pilot in,
She was
Avatar.
also random military girl in I think two Resident Evil movies, so she definitely doesn't play a type at all.
Mhm. Well, she gives off the vibe of, like, badass girl, like, kinda tomboy, kind of, like
Yeah.
which
I
that's
mean,
still kind of
she
what she does
also
in this.
I mean, she also does a bunch of voices in the Halo series.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was nice to see her in this doing something a bit more comedic.
Slightly, again, her character was kind of like the straight laced.
Yes.
Yeah, she didn't. I mean, Chris Pine was playing mostly off of her, not the other
Hmm.
way around.
That's true.
Her lava axe was pretty dope
Oh, I love that.
by the
That is
end.
such a cool prop. That's so cool.
Hmm.
And I love that they actually made that. Like that's not a green stand-in that she's holding.
Of course.
They got Weta Workshop to make her an axe that is actually all sculpted like that and has a function where it lights up. That's that's just fucking cool. I'm glad
Well,
that
it's
they
cool, but I feel like that's it's if you're making a movie like this for more or less nerdy people and you have a budget, I think it would be almost insulting if they didn't make a lot of the props like actual things.
That's true.
I feel like it's almost not a requirement, but it seems like no shit, it's gonna be real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you never know these days.
Sure, sure.
So I think we've mentioned him a couple times, but how do you feel about um Hugh Grant in this?
I like him. Uh, Granted, he's not. I mean, the story again is really not about him. So
No.
he's not in it as much as obviously the core group.
And he's not even really the main villain, even though he thinks he
No,
is.
not yeah. He's like a subset of that. Is it super obvious from the very beginning? We've like he's
Mhm.
like no shit, dude.
Absolutely. But I think it's still fun.
And especially if you put this up against some of the other stuff. I mean, he went from like the stumbling rom com guy for years. Like the
Well, yeah.
amount of
And then
him and Sandra Bullock or Julia Roberts, like the amount of movies they made together,
oh,
fucking
yep.
crazy. Um, but
And
he's done
then
this. He did
the past couple of
Heretic.
years he's done a bunch of things against type, which I think is
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Why not?
it's this, the second Paddington, um the religious thriller that came out this past year.
Hmm.
What was that called?
Heretic.
Heretic. Yeah, I like seeing comedic actors doing other things. It's it's good for their image, I think.
Well, it also I feel like it forces them to have a little bit more depth because, like, oh, Chris Evans going from Captain America to Knives Out. Oh,
Yeah.
he
Oh
knows
yeah.
how to
See,
be not just the good guy. Because I think also from Knives Out, then he went to the Gray Man, which was where he's also not a good man.
I've never seen The Gray Man. I've heard it is just okay.
I would give it like a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Like again, not
That's
bad,
not bad.
not bad, and like him as a bad guy in like nice polo shirts with a ridiculous mustache hunting down Ryan Gosling. Sure, why not?
Sure. I do remember um him going on and doing like talk show interviews and just the mustache making him look like a 60s cop.
Oh yeah, for sure. Did you reference or did you notice the reference where uh the owl bear, whatever the fuck it's called,
Yep.
um, at the end basically grabbed the bad chick and just hammered her in the ground like
Yep,
Hulk from
just
the
like Hulk
Avengers.
at the end of the
Yes,
yep. No, no,
yes.
I was just checking my phone notes. That's something I had written down, yeah.
Hmm.
Um
Which it did make me think. I was like, God, is it time to rewatch those movies? Like,
I I kind of want to
I
rewatch the second one just because Ultron is so freaking good
oh, Ultron's so freaking good.
and it is such a crime that he was at least for all appearances killed off at that one because
Sure,
and it's
yes.
almost like when you watch some of the ending scenes of that, it's almost like he knows he's being killed off by plot armor. What's your final score?
I just pulled up my letterbox and I rated this. What did I rate this? Let's see. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Like,
That is exactly the score I have written down as well. I think it is fun,
and
but there is very little substance to anything going on.
and if you look, like the average score out of like hundreds of thousands, maybe actually no, it's over 1 million reviews of this. the average is 3.5. So I think we are
Yeah,
in the like
we are in
we're in
the
the same
general
boat as
consensus.
everyone else. So folks, if you're looking for something definitely fun, maybe not amazing,
Pretty easy
um,
to get into. You don't
yeah.
have to have a whole lot of foreknowledge.
hmm
It's a
This is
good time, and you
on
don't have to think too much.
it's on Amazon Prime, I think, for the next like 6 days because I think it was leaving soon.
We
And
we have it as a physical copies that we borrowed, but
oh, I watched
uh,
it online. Okay,
oh no, I
yeah.
borrowed it from the parents.
Uh, yeah, I've also noticed it's hopped around streaming services. Like at one point it was on Hulu, at one point it was on HBO Max. So I'm
Yeah, I
sure
would
it'll
say
be somewhere.
I thought that it was on Max for the longest time, but
It
yeah, I
might
mean,
have been, but yeah.
yeah, we
Otherwise,
both enjoy it. It's
yeah.
not amazing.
And if you're looking for something clearly even more Oscar-winning cinema, next week we are going to be discussing Titan AE.
The Don Bluth headed science fiction action comedy. It's certainly of its era, but we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, with Matt Damon, Bill Pullman, Drew Barrymore.
Surprisingly stacked cast for what it is.
For what it is, yes. And as also as kind of a reference, Hayden and I are going to go see. We're trying to set it up with scheduling to where we actually see a movie in theaters at least once a month. And
And
some
this
months I think
month,
are going to be easier than others because obviously more interesting things are going to come out closer to summer and the holidays, where this is kind
we're
of the dead
start
months.
yeah, we're in a bit of a dumping months. However, this month it's going to be Captain America: Brave New World, Cap versus the Red Hulk.
Which
So that'll be out at the end of the month, I believe.
yeah, so we are. It'll be like I think it's the episode after Titan AE, and we will probably still call it episode 38 or whatever it is. But just we might put a little asterisk or something saying like, oh, hey, we actually saw this in theaters, so we might separate them somehow so you can tell that there's some sort of difference. If there's anything in theaters you think we should be, you know, paying our hard-earned money to go watch, let us know. And I don't think we said this at the very top, but you can let us know by Spotify comments. I believe this is also available on Amazon and Apple, and we get notifications for that on our like platform portal for creating this. And the podcast is also on Instagram at @themovie_bros. We're trying to slowly work that to make it more, I don't
Professional, you
know,
mean?
professional, maybe more user friendly and enticing.
Well, before we close out this episode, Duncan, we're going to slide right into Icebreaker Audio. This is the section where you, the viewer, get to hear more about what makes us us instead of just talking heads telling you about our opinions of movies.
And so, if you've ever gotten into a new school or a new job or something like that, sometimes they ask you like kind of generic icebreaker questions. Uh, so, if you've heard this before, great. If not, yeah, this is just kind of our immediate reactions. We did not prepare prior to these questions being asked. But Hayden, what
Hmm.
is your hot take on
My
anything?
hot take.
This thing. This is my soapbox moment. Anything you want.
I think it needs to be a little bit more narrow than that. I don't know if I
No, it
have
doesn't.
a hot take off the top of my head, Duncan.
You don't have opinion. It's just not just it's like a strong like this. Like fast walkers should be able to like fucking move. Like people need to move out of the way. I don't know. I'm just making shit up. But like anything like
Oh, let
anything
me
you want.
think. Duncan, why don't
Anything,
you
Hayden.
answer
Anything.
first? I don't know. I don't know. Um,
I guess I'm just very opinionated. I don't know. I would say. I don't know. No,
I think if you are either caught driving while using your phone or someone like sees you doing so, you should be able to lose your license. I think that that's really stupid.
what?
I think that that's really dangerous. I think it makes you
Well,
a bad driver. I think it endangers everyone around you, and I just hate it whenever I see it in the highway. It whenever I pass someone who's going 15 miles an hour under the speed limit and I'm trying to get to work, I'm like, oh, what the hell is going on with this person? I look, oh, it's okay. They're watching TikToks on their phone. Yeah, that pisses me off.
That's fair. I can understand that. So you're saying you've never used your phone while driving?
Genuinely, I try not to. I don't
And
know that
this
I've never done it.
okay,
I'm just
let me
saying
hold on,
I
and I
I I actively make the effort to not do so.
sure. Uh, what if you need directions?
The
I know. I want to make understand like your point of view. That's all.
like is this a situation where I need directions and I only realize this once I'm driving?
Okay, let's say you were.
Because granted, I've used my phone as like a map a lot whenever I
No,
go
that's what I'm
camping or
saying.
go to
Yeah.
different yeah, then I'll have it up and I'll have it like, you know, on my dashboard and it's giving me directions. I'm talking about when I drive past people and I can see them frickin' shrimp curled over texting or whatever instead of driving.
Okay, that's fair.
Like
No,
if I
I
can
agree.
actively see you frickin' using Instagram or something like that on your phone and not just like, not just it's there.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, that's my hot take.
Any other hot takes you can think of? Or you think I'll answer one and see if you got another one. Um, I think it's weird. I am stuck between a rock and a hard place because, like, okay, I want to be paid based off how hard I work, which like the level of service that I give if you are in a industry that requires like service. However, I don't know if tipping should be a requirement. Like we should like if you cannot get a living wage without the tips, that doesn't make fucking sense.
Yeah, I don't listen, I have thoughts on tipping, but I don't want to like
Well, I'll be mad at you if you've got some dumbass fucking
I
thoughts
know
on
it's why
tipping,
I
Hayden.
don't want to that's why I don't want to share my because I've never worked in a scenario where I have needed or if I've gotten tips. So
Yeah, that's what I was like, dude.
I don't want to
You could
like
fuck right off.
well, that's why I didn't lead with that. That's why I went with like freaking car phones instead
That's
because I'm like,
fair. That's fair.
I don't want to like come across like my brain slipped out my asshole. So
Well, I would preface it with like I think the range of what is acceptable for tips has changed over time, and some of that is blown out of proportion, which I think
oh,
is
it
ridiculous.
does kind of rub me the wrong way when a check comes and
Suggested amounts.
and the suggested amount starts at 20%.
Oh yes, no, that I totally understand is
That's kind
ridiculous.
of nuts.
Sure, I th- but at the I also think it's ridiculous that some places are like, oh, uh, putting the like option for tip when it's places that just you should not tip them. Like there are some services that I 100% think that you should be giving them a tip because you're paying for the like the thing and then you're tipping for the service. And if it's not the kind of environment where there is actual like service, you should not tip for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, usually my own personal
There we go.
I'm and see this is why I didn't want to talk about this. Okay.
We don't have to talk about it. That's fine.
I
We don't have to have an
guess
actual discussion. It's cool. It's all good.
well, Duncan, a podcast is for discussion. That's the whole point.
I was
Um,
being sarcastic here.
okay. I guess my own personal philosophy of like the past year and a half or so is, um, if the option to tip before I've actually gotten my food is given to me, then I think that's dumb, and I tip lower or sometimes not at all if that's the case because you're just asking me for more money without having provided me that service. And then it calls into to question of okay, if I then don't fork over more money, are you going to give me worse service? And if so, is that not, holding good service hostage in some ways? Or like, is that not similar to sort of threatening me of, oh, if you don't pay me an exorbitant amount of money for, fucking tacos, then I'm going to give you bad food.
Well, see, that's why I'm also on this potentially on the side of like, okay, sure, I want to get paid for like my hard work effort based off my hard effort, but maybe just change it to there aren't tips because if you travel, there's a lot of countries that just they
It's
don't have tips,
it's
and they
very
are
much a North American thing.
yes, which I like knowing that like my individual efforts are making a difference for my paycheck, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I could just always give the same amount of effort and get the same amount of pay, like a good amount of I don't know. This the economy and the system that we have built for ourselves here is pretty fucked.
It's not ideal sometimes, no.
Yeah. Yeah, there's oh boy.
I would feel so much better about tips if it was just like if it was a gratuity rolled into the cost of everything beforehand. Like and it didn't come as an expectation at the end. Like I would be fine in general, just if I were going to a place that would have asked me for tips normally, if they just said, "Oh, the cost of a 10 to 15% tip on alt checks is just included,"
Which
I
I
would I
mean,
would I
a
would feel
lot of
better about that.
some places are doing that where like, oh, if you notice our prices are higher because we do not like accept tips when we are adjusting our pays to like accordingly, which I can appreciate. Some places do that, some places don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that kind of a practice would make me feel a lot better about constantly judging this server's
Sure, of
performance and whether do
course.
they deserve this amount or this amount. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't feel right doing that.
What was it? Oh, okay, if you don't have to fill a silence with conversation just to fill the silence. I fucking cannot stand small talk for the sake of small talk. Like if your conversation is just fluff, shut up. Get used to actually having like stillness and just quiet. Even if you're like sitting with someone and there's nothing to fucking say, you don't have to say anything. Like you should
Duncan,
be
that's
able
our
to
entire podcast.
I'm just saying, generally speaking, like if it's a romantic partner, if it's a friend, if it's family, it's whoever, if it's a coworker, like, oh man, if you ask me how the weather is, or like, oh man, how's your like whatever, I'm gonna blow my brains out, dude. I people are like, oh, like, you're too reserved or too stoic sometimes. I'm like, yeah, because I'm only gonna talk if I actually have something to say to you. And spoiler alert, maybe I don't have anything to say to you. I don't know.
I would add on to that to say that if the only thing you know how to talk about is football, then you
Oh,
are an inherently boring person.
well,
And
I should
it is 100% something that is propped up like socially, and I get that, but just like the complete like blank eyed stare I sometimes get from a coworker when I tell them, "Oh, I don't really watch football," and then they just look at me like, "Oh, you uncultured, caveman." Just like, no, man. There are more things in this world outside of quarterbacks and things like that. It's just there are there are people I know just that don't have any personality outside of.
well, to kind of sort of piggyback off that sort of not. If your entire personality is where you went to college, man, I could not give any less of a shit that like if you only want to talk about the good old days of like, oh, this time in I dude, I don't care. I absolutely do not care. But B, I do think like it's not just about football. I think it's any one specific thing. Like
Yeah, I would say that
everyone is everyone
if
is
your
multidimensional.
personality is only one thing, it's bad.
And speaking from experience, like for a long time, I only like for years, like when I was in the weeds, like in the trenches, 60 hours a week, every week, all I did was talk about scuba. But at some point I was like, oh wait, there's other shit to A talk about, B do, and like more interesting people to interact with than just the same like, oh, let me tell you about the same dive every week. I don't know, just
No,
so it's
that's
not
fine.
specifically about football, but just in general, like, oh, everyone's multidimensional. There's more things to your personality than just football. I'm sure
Or at the
there
very
is. You
least,
just don't want to
there
talk about them.
should be. Yes.
Uh,
Well,
uh,
why don't we transfer over into things we've seen, things we're looking forward to watching, and round out the episode before we sign off.
Sounds good. So, between last episode, which was Oppenheimer, and this episode, Dungeons and Dragons, I have seen, let's see. Well, I went and saw La La Land in concert. That was on Saturday night. Yeah.
Did it end positively this time?
Dude, that movie's so fucking good. Oh my god. Ugh.
I really want to love it. It's just I can't. I don't like the ending at all.
Oh, gee, well, again, this is why I think this would be a good thing for us to actually have a conversation as an episode. So I added it to our picker wheel.
I mean,
But
that's fine. I just don't think I would have a lot of discussion about it. I would just be like, this is that bit from Bob's Burgers where
what?
Linda's doing. Okay, there's a bit from Bob's Burgers where Linda is doing like, um, like her own stage musicals in the burger restaurant, and there's a whole thing where you're, um, her acting is like, oh, I didn't do it. Just kidding. It was me. And then the takeaway
Yes.
from the episode of that's not a twist. It's a lie. A twist is a surprise. You just lied. That's how I feel whenever I finish watching La La Land. It's like
What?
it's not a twist. You just lied.
They didn't even lie though. What are you talking about?
You didn't lie. You spent the whole movie saying, "Oh, look, they're definitely going to get together. They're definitely going to get together. They're definitely going to get together," and then you break them up in the last 5 minutes.
Dude, that was definitely not the last 5 minutes.
Well, you know what I mean.
No, I think there's a very clear. I mean, they even do it by season of like, oh, like the summer montage of them being together. I don't want to talk about a lot of it, but like, and then there's like the part of them actually being together, and then it's them slowly drifting when he's on tour and she's building her play, and then there's still probably like almost a third of the movie where they're apart in the end, and she actually gets the role she's supposed to get. She follows her dream, he follows his dream. They still obviously like understand that like, oh, in order for us to truly commit to both of our dreams, we cannot fully
I
commit
just
to each other.
no, I get it.
Then
Like,
what the fuck?
trust me, it's not like I don't understand the point they're making. I just don't like it.
Okay, all right.
But hey, if
Um,
you want to do an episode on it, we can do it. Sure,
well, add it to the picker wheel, and if it gets picked, it gets picked.
sure.
I watched Conclave, which
What'd you
is
think?
up. Okay. I actually talked with our dad about this, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. Even if it is mostly just people just sitting around talking. It was
Yeah,
interesting because as someone
it,
who is not super Catholic and doesn't know a ton about this stuff on how it all works, it was visually pretty stunning. Not like wow cinema, but it was still
I
very
mean,
like
I've seen some of the
nicely.
cinematography looking really nice.
No, it is, but it's not like it's not like a it's not like a Roger Deakins or like a it's I don't know. It's not as like grand. It's a little more subtle with its art, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Have you seen it?
No, I just heard things about it, seen some stuff. That's all.
Okay. Well, without just in because again, it's on Peacock for free if you want to watch it. But just in case, uh, it's obviously them picking a new pope, and Ralph Fiennes, whatever his name is like the manager of the conclave, basically the process of picking the pope. Um, Stanley Tucci is actually really good in it. John Lithgow was good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could definitely see if because this thing is super rooted in realism, which again I appreciate because it's stuff that I had no idea about how this works from basically from start to finish, and the ending was not at all what I was expecting it to be. But yeah, but I could see if they didn't want to lean so far into the realism of this, they could have made this a pretty interesting like little more mystery, maybe like oh the Pope was murdered, or like the
Well, isn't that
debate
like
side of
kind
who
of what's
becomes.
implied? Because
No.
they
Okay.
that's
Well,
that's
maybe from the
definitely
trailers.
implied in the trailers.
Okay, not at all in the movie, but maybe from the trailers. But which that's what I kind of thought was going to happen. But no, he's just Pope was old, he died. Now we got to figure out who's next. That's the whole movie.
Huh. I mean, I am religious. I'm not Catholic, obviously, but maybe I'll get around to watching it. I do like Ralph Fiennes. I think he's a good actor.
Oh yeah, he's great. And then today, I don't know, right before we were recording, because I was burning some time, I rewatched Forgetting Sarah Marshall by Judd
It's fun.
Apatow. It's fun. I feel like Jason
Seagull. Seagull
Segel,
like an eagle.
whatever. He's very funny. I
He kind
understand
of
how
disappeared off the face of
he
the
did
earth, though.
disappear, which I mean, I don't know. He did his thing. Like, he did the thing.
I mean,
But he
granted,
was
he was
also,
on How I Met Your Mother for like a decade.
yes, exactly. And in the movie, I get how because again, he's got the personality. He does not have the looks, but he does have the personality to pull both Kristen Bell and Mila Kunis. But I don't know if you've seen this or if it's been a while or whatever, but uh, Russell Brand, does anyone like him in any movie? I don't think I've ever seen him in anything that I'm like, oh yes, let's hire him as the actor. Like, is he? I don't like
Um,
him.
there was a period of time in the early 2000s, early 2010s or so
Mm-hmm. Oh no,
where
he was
he was
popular,
like
but
a big thing.
I don't get it.
I've never got the appeal either.
I'm looking
I
at
mean,
his filmography
he
right
has
now, and I'm
tried
like,
to
man,
like
there's just a lot of
rebrand
fucking
himself
duds in
recently
this.
as like a spiritual guru for some reason.
I mean, that
It's still
tracks.
weird. It's still weird.
Yeah, just ugh. Oh, and then earlier this week I watched a documentary about the Blue Angels, like the fighter jet like show. I don't know if
Sure.
it was produced by Glenn Powell. It was made specifically for IMAX. So
Makes
of
sense.
course I watched it on my laptop. Um, and like while some of the plane stuff was actually pretty interesting, like how because they do 300 shows a year. They're practicing basically every single day, and while it is very cool and some of the cinematography, because it's basically the same stuff that they use for Top Gun Maverick. Uh, Part of my mind is okay. How much jet fuel are they using? All the like, all the personnel that they're using for every show. All the like, just there's so much that goes into it. Where I'm like, that's where we're putting like a lot of. I don't. It was a very positive experience. Like, I understand that they do more than just their
Well,
flight shows.
are they part of the Air Force or are they their own separate thing?
No, dude, they're literally. It's basically just a huge commercial for it. It's technically uh Navy technically, but yeah, pretty much the whole thing is just a commercial, which is
Because
cool.
I don't
I
know.
will say again,
I
it
would have
is cool,
assumed they were. I mean,
but
obviously part of the Air Force.
no, it's yeah, it's Navy. Um, but yeah, I was like, I feel weird knowing that this is where potentially a lot of my money, or at least a lot of like taxes potentially are going to go towards this. Which again, they do more than just their shows. They do a lot of outreach programs. Like every place that they visit to do like their air shows, they're doing other things, which is cool. I don't know, especially with just everything that's going on.
Like,
It made me feel
like,
weird.
I definitely don't want to have a discussion on here about like military spending, but
Sure.
some military spending is okay. I don't know if I want military tax money going towards like aerial ballet. It seems
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, yeah. All the other military conversations aside, yes, I feel like that's one that most people maybe again could maybe agree on. I don't know. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their own
You would
opinion, but
think,
like,
right?
yeah, like
Like, I don't know,
again,
like
the
the
whole
Blue
time
Angels
watching,
are
I was like,
cool, but I don't know if that
yeah, it's cool as
needs.
shit, but like,
I don't know if I need to be paying for it.
yeah, I don't know. Sorry,
Off topic.
off topic, but yes, I think that's everything that I saw this week that I didn't talk about the week prior. Yeah,
Really, usually you have a lot more.
it's been one of those weeks, just been busy, and I'm
Understood.
trying to get into my like routine of the gym, and sometimes that's late night, sometimes that's daytime. I'm still trying to settle into what's going to work, so that means less movie time.
I actually have 3 movies as well. So,
Nice.
uh, only one of them was new, but either way.
Sure.
I Long Legs from last year, the
Oh yeah,
suspense horror movie, came to
was it
Hulu.
good?
I remember seeing it in theaters and really loving it. On a rewatch, it is not as good as I remember. It is beautifully shot. There's some absolutely fantastic buildup. I don't know if the movie ever delivers on its buildup as much as I thought that it had the first time I saw it. I think after Nicolas Cage's character is no longer like an unknown and he's just on camera and talking and just, I think you lose a lot of the
Sure, I mean that makes
suspense that
sense.
it had made.
Well,
Which,
that's why
I
like
mean,
the
obviously it's a
original
trade-off. You can't
Jaws
keep
didn't
him.
show the shark.
It will, sure. I mean, and you can't you can't have Nicolas Cage and never show him. I think audiences would never
Yeah,
buy that.
that's fair.
And so, I mean, yeah, it's. I completely understand that that is not a viable request to say, "Hey, have Nicolas Cage, but then never show him ever." But I feel like I don't know. I just uh, on a rewatch, I enjoyed it less, which is a little disappointing. I
Is
still
that
think
the
it's
same?
good
Is that the same director
to
as the monkey?
the monkey, yes, and I'm interested to see how that'll do differently because there are no comedic beats in Long Legs at all. So I'm interested to see how that changes.
Did you? I did not realize because now that we are showing the monkey at my work coming here soon, we're doing a little bit more like advertising. I didn't realize Elijah Wood is in this. What?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
He
I knew
plays
it
like a
was
cult member,
Theo. Yeah, I knew it was Theo, whatever his name is.
Theo James,
Theo James. But I was like,
Tatiana
oh wait.
Maslany.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just randomly, I was like, oh shit, it's Elijah Wood. Okay.
I think Elijah Wood just takes projects like, am I bored and want to be in something stupid? Alrighty, let's do that.
Yeah, why not, dude? Fuck it.
I mean, if you were someone who never had to work again and can just choose whatever you wanted to do, why wouldn't you?
Sure.
So I watched Longlegs. Still had a good time. It wasn't as much of a wow moment as when I saw it in theaters, but sometimes that's just because you're seeing it in a theater. It's the whole act of going out to a theater which makes something seem more quality laden than perhaps it is if you watched it at home. So who knows? Still a fun watch if you've never seen it. Um, I watched the second Paddington movie at home because I own that movie, love it to death. It's still great. It is, in my opinion, the best one. And I know this now because I have seen number 3, and that's the third movie I saw this week. I watched Paddington in Peru in theaters, and it is just okay. It's I think it fundamentally misunderstands what the appeal of Paddington is a little bit. The his whole shtick is, oh, I'm a awkward and clumsy but very polite bear, and I live in the big city of London. And this one's like, okay, but what if we took him and put him in the jungle? Well, then you lose a lot of what makes that character, and the movie felt kind of soulless because of it. Like, I mean, there are still a lot of fun sequences, and the family's back in it, and you got Antonio Banderas playing a goofy villain, and that's fun. But what makes the first two movies, I mean, special in some ways, is that there is a whole lot of heart. There's a whole lot of like I don't know. There's a whole lot of emotional substance in those first two movies, and this one almost completely lacking. It was a little weird.
Well, I could also see like they did. I mean, that second one is like a lot. I mean, they even make a joke about that in that Nicolas Cage movie with Pedro Pascal.
Oh yeah,
So like that the second one is well established, and it was several years since. Like if they had just continued on and like a year or two later pumped out the third
I've
one, but
I've
since it's been a
always been
bit,
confused why they didn't do that.
I think that's why the third one has not landed as well. Beyond just the myriad of reasons you just listed.
I mean, and I'm not saying that like it's not bad. It's just it's not as good. It feels as I think we've said in a few other reviews, it feels like it's missing something that's keeping it from being great.
What else did you watch, Hayden?
That's all three,
Wait, you just said Longlegs and Paddington.
and the second one.
Oh, sorry. I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, got it. Okay.
I'd watched it again in the run up because something that this series is really well known for is that every single side character part of the family has a moment to shine in the narrative. They have their time to step forward into the
Sure.
limelight and solve a
Sure.
problem, which is weird because, like, again, that's something that doesn't really happen in the third one. Like, yeah, sure, the dad has this thing where he overcomes his fear of spiders, and the mom is there, but she doesn't really do a lot of anything. The daughter doesn't really do much of anything, and in the other ones, she was able to, you know, help help Paddington get things done because she had her network of like friends who were interested in journalism, and they could petition people at their school. And they, like, I don't know, there was a lot more interconnectedness to the characters in the first two, and this one felt like they were kind of sidelined. Yeah, it feels confusing that they chose to abandon what was kind of a very successful uh script, very successful, what would you call it?
Overarching, like, solid, like, beats of the movie. I don't know.
I don't know, just the established convention from the first two. They just didn't bring it over.
Well, I guess, I mean,
And
this is, you referenced, like, expectations, yeah?
yeah, I mean, and maybe it's just me, but I mean, granted, the first two movies are beloved. They're liked pretty much the world over. And so I think it is not my fault or anyone's fault if they went into Paddington in Peru expecting that same level of quality and got a very surface level movie, I guess. There's not a whole lot emotionally underneath the plot going on compared to those. Yeah. So, still fun, just a little underwhelming.
Okay. Looking forward to anything specific?
Well, we got the monkey. I think you mentioned a few times. Monkey looks fun, maybe just to me. There's that Looney Tunes movie, which I kind of feel obligated to support just because it's 2D animation on the big screen, and
I have
I
not
feel
seen
like on
a
some level,
single commercial for this, dude,
I
or anything.
the first commercial I saw for it, like actual commercial, was during Paddington in Peru. All the other ones are ones that I've had to hear about online. I don't know why they're not promoting this more.
Well, granted,
Um,
like, we don't go to a ton of movies anymore, so we're not seeing a bunch of trailers and stuff, but yeah.
well, I mean, and certainly kids movies because they're not going to
Sure,
play
sure.
this.
With the monkey?
Certainly not. But I like I'm a big animation fan in general, so I would like to go see that simply to support 2D animation. But other than that, um, Mickey 17, and that's kind of it.
Okay.
How about you?
Um, I could not care less about the monkey. Not anything against it, it's just
No,
not my
not your
thing.
genre. That's fine.
Um, the more and more that I've uh, see from all the Captain America 4 stuff,
Yeah, and
I
not that I'm not
I
looking forward to watching it, but I
I'm not,
don't
uh, I'm at, like, a 6.5 out of 10 for that, for just the
like
hype
excitement
level.
wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still am looking forward to Marvel action sequences because
Sure.
regardless of the story they try and pair them, and those are always usually very solid. So looking forward to that. The more I hear about the story, the less jazzed I am. But yeah,
Yeah, Mickey 17 does look very good. And since it is, I think I'm gonna talk about this every goddamn week, and I say that every goddamn week, but,
F1.
F1, they released a little behind the scenes bit, and again, it looks fucking great, dude.
Yeah, no,
And
I don't doubt it.
it also just, it looks like the movie that is going to do well in, like, a big theater with good sound.
Oh, you mean F1 the movie? I thought you meant like F1 just watching
What the
F1.
fuck? No, no, the movie, dude.
You do both things, Duncan. I
Well,
don't
okay,
know.
granted, the Drive to Survive, the Netflix like behind the scenes series that I really love, does come
Yeah, I
out.
thought that's what you were meaning.
That comes out, I think, in like 2-3 weeks, just before, or like no, that's like 2 months before the movie. But um, yeah, I don't think there's anything else that I've seen that's like jumping out. Again, this is kind of the dead zone for movies.
Well, it's like I know Black Hat is releasing either
Black Bag.
has I'm sorry, Black Bag.
We're gonna be showing it.
I know Black Hat was also another movie like this that's had that name, so
Black Hat was Chris Hemsworth, Michael Mann, about him being like a hacker.
it's an odd choice for a hacker.
Yeah, it like a more actiony hacker though. Either way, yeah, Black Bag. I think it looks sophisticated and good, but it doesn't look like anything new. Like it looks kind of generic
Yeah,
spy movie. Like I'm sure it's
it,
going
it
like.
looks like it's something I've seen before.
Well, again, I like Kate Blanchett and I like Michael Fassbender. They're both good actors. Um,
And Steven Soderbergh is a good
yes, yeah,
director.
yes, of course, but like I don't know. It doesn't look that.
It doesn't look interesting.
It doesn't look interesting. Correct. That was technically Dungeons and Dragons. If you have thoughts on that movie, any of the movies we just quickly recapped on what we're interested in or just watched, any of the icebreaker stuff, yeah, reach out. You kind of know where to find us by now. That has been episode 36, I think. Yeah, 36.
Join us next week for Titan AE. That is streamable through Disney Plus, is it not?
I honestly have no idea. I borrowed a copy from the library to watch it.
I'm just going to quickly look. So that's available to watch through Prime Video or Apple
There you go.
TV if you have that subscription.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to y'all next week.